against Julia Gillard. Mr Rudd won the vote 57 to 45. Wayne Swan stood down as deputy leader. Anthony Albanese has replaced him and he will be flanking Mr Rudd there this evening. There's been quite a heavy body count for Labor in this leadership spill. At this stage we know of 6 ministers who will leave the front bench. 2 of them, Peter Garrett and Craig Emerson, will be leaving politics and they will not contest the next election. Wayne Swan has, however, says he will recontest the seat of Lily.
Thank you,
Let's see what Mr Rudd has to say.
Let me make some remarks before I turn to the Deputy Prime Minister, Anthony Albanese. In 2007, the Australian people elected me to be their Prime Minister. That is a task that I resume today with humility, with honour, and with an important sense of energy and purpose. In recent years, politics has failed the Australian people. There's just been too much negativity all round. There's been an erosion of trust. Negative, destructive personal politics has done much to bring dishonour to our Parliament, but done nothing to address the urgent challenges facing our nation, our communities, our families. In fact, it's been holding our country back. And all this must stop. And with all my heart, that is the purpose I intend to pursue through the office of Prime Minister. I want to pause to acknowledge the achievements of my predecessor, Julia Gillard. She is a woman of extraordinary intelligence, of great strength and great energy. All of you here in the National Press Gallery and across the nation would recognise those formidable attributes in her. And I know them, having worked with her closely for some years. Also, Julia, as Prime Minister and prior to that as Deputy Prime Minister, has achieved much under the difficult circumstances of a minority government. And in doing so, she has been helped by a group of dedicated ministers and members of Parliament whose contribution I also wish to acknowledge. In Julia's case, let me say this. Were it not for Julia, we would not have a Fair Work Act. If it were not for Julia, we would not have a national scheme which ensures that the literacy and numeracy performance of every Australian school is tested regularly and that interventions occur to lift those students who are doing poorly. She has been a remarkable reformer, and I acknowledge those contributions, again formally this evening. I also wish to recognise the contribution of the Deputy Prime Minister, as he has been, Wayne Swan, with whom I've also worked intimately, in fact over several years, working in the trenches day in, day out, night in, night out, here in Canberra, working together to prevent this country from rolling into the global economic recession and avoiding mass unemployment. So Wayne, whatever our differences have been, I acknowledge your contribution here as part of that team which kept us out of a global catastrophe. The question many of you will understandably be asking is, why am I taking on this challenge? For me, it's pretty basic, it's pretty clear. I simply do not have it in my nature to stand idly by and to allow an Abbott government to come to power in this country by default. I've known Mr Abbott for 15 years, since I was elected to this place the first time. I recognise his strengths. I also recognise, however, that Mr Abbott is a man steeped in the power of negative politics. And he's formidable at negative politics. But I see no evidence of a real positive plan for our country's future. I also passionately believe that the Australian people want all of us engaged in our national political life to work together, to come together whenever that is possible. And I see my role as Prime Minister in forging consensus wherever I can, identifying our differences where they do in fact exist, and without reverting to personal vitriol. That just diminishes and demeans us all. We can do better than that. We can all do better than that. You know, Australia is a great country. Having seen a few others around the world in my time, this is a fantastic place. We owe much to those who have come before us, and we owe much to those who will come after us to ensure that what we have inherited is improved upon and not degraded. But you know something? We have a great future, but that future is not guaranteed. As I've said once before, here in Australia we've got to make our own luck. And we can, we're good at it. And if we work at it, we can actually bring our future home securely. In recent times I've been thinking a lot about the state of the global economy. There are bad things happening out there. The global economy is still experiencing the slowest of recoveries. The China resources boom is over. And China itself domestically shows signs of recovering. And when China...
And we'll leave Kevin Rudd there and bring in Seven's political editor, Mark Riley. Now, Mark, how does he unify the party?
Well, Chris, I think the element that Kevin Rudd must employ to unify the Labor Party at the moment is give them some hope and some optimism that they can beat Tony Abbott. You heard Kevin Rudd there saying that he's full of passion and purpose to do that. Well, the Labor Party now has to believe he has the wherewithal to do that. The messaging there is pretty good. He's talking about a positive agenda. He says that the age of negativity in politics has to end, that it's been destructive on our democracy, that it's hindered the Parliament from achieving what it should for the Australian people, and he's here to turn on the light after a period of darkness. Well, we'll see how that goes. But the only way to unite the party is to stretch out the hand, a healing hand, a calming hand into that caucus, not to take out retribution, but to try and bring the caucus together on a common purpose of retaining government.
The crossbenchers are going to be crucial in this. Where's the support at with them tonight?
Look, it's really interesting, Chris. They will be. I've made a lot of calls tonight on this matter. It's my understanding that Tony Abbott will not be able to get the numbers in the Parliament to push no confidence, to force a no confidence vote against Kevin Rudd. I think Mr Rudd, even without Tony Windsor, may be able to get enough numbers on that crossbench, as fractious as it is, to prevent that from happening. So that, at the moment, seems secure, but not certain, Chris.
Earlier today, Mr Rudd promised there'd be no retribution if he won, but the body count for Labor in this is pretty high. There's 6 ministers, 2 of them leaving politics. Is that more than usual?
Yes, it is, and yes, it is a high body count. Really, we have 3 if you count Julia Gillard, the Prime Minister, who will be leaving politics in the next election too, because of that challenge she set to Kevin Rudd, that the loser had to leave politics. We also have Peter Garrett and Craig Emerson leaving Cabinet and politics. Wayne Swan, of course, Stephen Conroy, Joe Ludwig, and Greg Combay standing down from Cabinet. There is a lot of positions, 6 there for Mr Rudd to fill in the Cabinet. It'll be an interesting period because he was promising through his messaging to the Labor caucus to return the power of the caucus to appoint the Cabinet. We'll see whether that comes through. But I think you'd see that as a secondary problem. What we're entering here with Labor is a second phase of the cult of Kevinism, as my old dear mate Matt Price used to call it, and it will all be about the leader, and it will be about Kevin Rudd versus Tony Abbott. This will be the most presidential of election campaigns we've ever seen.
So what happens tomorrow?
Tomorrow, Kevin Rudd needs to assert his authority in the Parliament. He needs to move quickly to fill the positions in the Cabinet, to show, to try and have a demonstration of that unity of purpose in the Labor Party, satisfy the Governor-General. He has the support of the House of Representatives, and get on with it.
And when will the election be? Earlier or on September 14th?
Look, I don't have any empirical insight into that, Chris, but my sense is that he'd want to go a little bit earlier to set his own date, so it's all done at his own timetable. September 14 date was Julia Gillard's timetable. I think he'd want to do it a little bit earlier, that perhaps late August. Certainly wanted to do things under his own steam and on his own terms.
All right, thanks, Mark. We'll let you get some rest. Going to be a rather big day tomorrow, you'd have to think.
Just another one, Chris.
All right, thanks, Mark. Mark Riley there with Seven's coverage of the leadership spill this evening. And that's our breaking news coverage done for this evening. There'll be more on the fallout in Sunrise Live from Canberra from 6 a.m. And, of course, any breaking developments in 7 News bulletins across the day. Full coverage in 7 News bulletins for you at 6. I'm Chris Barth. Thanks for your company. Good night.